Good evening and good afternoon for my guest in the next episode of OPOstories from the NBA. Today we've got a special guest, NBA vet with 14 seasons experience, 8 teams, Brian Skinner. Brian, nice to have you in the podcast.
It's good to be here. We've been trying to do this and set this up for pre-pandemic to all this stuff now, so it's good.
But like usually, when you've got the aim and you are patient, the goal will come. So I'm really glad that you find time for us and we could talk. But before I will ask you about the really beginning of your journey with the basketball, there's still the topic and the question regarding basketball and your alma mater, Baylor University.
Yes.
In 2022 draft, San Antonio Spurs selected Jeremy Sochan, Polish basketball player. It's the first player since Marcin Gortat was in the NBA. And I'm just curious, as you, as a player, came from the Baylor University, do you've got still some kind of connection with your alma mater and you watch what the Baylor players are doing in the NBA?
No, I do watch the players that are there right now. Um, I still go back and watch, probably not as many games as I want to right now, but my family time doesn't allow it. Where it would be easier if I was living there. But no, I still keep up with them. In fact, my daughter played volleyball at Baylor. She went back. She was working on getting her master's done. So it's definitely protruding through the Skinner ranks right now. Um, Being able to go back and still having a connection, it was kind of special having my daughter play volleyball and still be able to play in the same facility that I played in for 4 years. It's just a blessing. It was good.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at the first steps of Jeremy in the NBA, and there are a lot of warm words from the coach Greg Popovich and other players, and you probably also remember Jeremy from the time he played at the Baylor University. How do you
Yes.
see him in the NBA? Is it the first step of really long and fruitful journey and career in the NBA?
Well, you can make it however you want to be honest with you. Um, it is, you got to find a niche. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. You got to find a niche. You got to find out what you do really, really well. And you got to learn how to exploit that. Average for NBA players, you can tell some guys that are really, really good at what they do. And you have some guys that are injury prone. You have some guys that you think would do a lot better than what they did. Um, a lot of politics, but also a lot of hard work that goes involved with it. You get out what you put in, and it's definitely not fair. The politics that come into it. You have a number one draft pick that comes in, and you have a starting spot right now. He's going to get that because they want to see what their investment is. So, you just have to find out what you're really good at. You have to have a counter to that. And you really got to sell yourself as being the person that you want people to see, but you got to put the product on the floor.
Mm-hmm. And when we came to the really beginnings of your journey with the basketball, who was your favorite player and the team, and why you decided to play basketball?
Well, me, I was my favorite player always. I thought I was the best thing in the world. No, you know what? Pre-draft, that was a lockout season in '98. That's when San Antonio won it. We played 53 games, and that was like the first time that I was really around. The Sam Cassells, the Nick Van Exels, Hakeem Olajuwons, um, Mark Bryant, those guys. I walk into the gym and you saw like 40 guys that were all getting together and working out. It That was the first time I really saw what it was to be having a brotherhood. These guys were all working, and they were all at that time unbelievably talented and good at that time. But you could see that they were taking the time out to show guys how to do certain things, tricks of the trade, little things that you wouldn't even really think about. It was very humbling. You go from being one of the best players in your high school to being one of the best players in your college to being one of the most recruited players, and then you get an NBA deal, and you're back at the bottom of the totem pole right now. trying to figure it out. And there's some guys that come in and sort of set a standard and have a certain play style that fits in real quick. And everybody else, you know, when you got 5 or 6 year veterans that are in front of you, 10, 15-year veterans that are in front of you, you know, that'd be hard to come in as a draft pick and have to play and hope that you would play in front of Michael Jordan or Tim Duncan or Shaquille O'Neal or Kobe Bryant. Like, that'd be unheard of to sit there and do that. But, you know, in 98, it was the first basic, you know, introduction into this is what your expectations are. This is what you're going to have to go against. And it's not just 1 or 2 good players every single night. These are the best players in the world that are playing this game that you're going to have to go and try to put your best product on the floor, and hopefully that your team prevails.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that it was something to achieve this goal and play in the NBA. But as you mentioned, there were a lot of great players, veterans. But I guess that before they start to be a mentor for you, you have had to show that you suit for the league, that you are tough enough, that you work hard. So what was the most difficult for you when you started your journey in the NBA, when you were drafted and start first day practice with the team?
I think my first day practice was a little bit of nervousness, but a lot to go out and try to prove yourself. You have guys that you've been watching, you know, and you talk about not necessarily idols, but guys that you see. It's different when you get to see them in person and get to know them and figure out what they're really about and figure out how much work they put into it. Being the first person to get in to the gym and being the last person to get out, where it's like, I just want to go see the city. It was very humbling for me. It was humbling. I mean, there was nothing else to sit there and do but to work out and figure out, hey, who do I want to try to craft my game after right now? Do I want to keep my own individual style of play right now? What do I like that certain players do, and can I implement those things into my game? It was a lot more cerebral. I mean, the physical play was during that time and era. You know, you had your bad boys, Detroit Pistons. You had your guys that, you know, no blood, no foul. Anthony Masons, you know, Charles Oakley's, those guys right there. But when it really came down to it, you know, what style of play do you have? Can you accommodate yourself? And you looked at 4 years. I mean, I have a lot of guys that were better than me and got drafted before I did and didn't last but 2 or 3 years. So, you know, I take it for granted, you know, everything else followed. You have a lot of players out there right now that are talking about, I want to get ranked. I want to get ranked. I want to get ranked. And if I'm ranked, you know, and the game has changed, but for me, it was not about getting ranked. It wasn't about anything else. I just wanted to make sure that I was the best player on the floor every night. And if I wasn't, I was on the top 2.
Mm-hmm. As when I talk about especially those first steps in the NBA with the other players, there is also a lot of words about the mentoring, about veterans who take care about rookies. Who was the veteran from you and give you some really useful
I
advice?
think, well, we had Pooh Richardson, we had Derek Martin. I think Maurice Taylor was probably in his 3rd year. Rodney Rogers was there. Lamont Murray was there. Keith Kloss, good old Keith Kloss, he was there. We really didn't have a ton of veterans on that team. I mean, that team was really, really young. Our records show that we were really, really young. And I say that, you know, experience, and savviness, those things do play a part in terms of understanding the tricks of the trade of how you play the game and what you can get away with and what certain referees call. Like, it was really a cerebral type of game more than just the physical style of it. But, you know, we had a lot of young, I really at that time didn't have a veteran that was really a veteran at that time. I think the oldest veteran that we had maybe 1 or 2 that were plus 5 years. Everybody else was young. I think Lorenzen Wright was the same thing. He was 3rd or 4th year into the league. That was the first time. Now, I will say this. I know a complete difference between that and then going to Phoenix when I played in Phoenix, where everybody was a veteran. And I think Alondo Tucker was the only rookie, and Daryl Strawberry was the only rookie there. You could see it, but I didn't know it at that time. I'm thinking, oh, it's just like this, it's like this, to where you have players that are veterans on their second and third deals that they're working on right now. They've been in the league 10 plus years. And you have the Grant Hills and the Steve Nashes and, Shaquille O'Neal's, and you have all these guys that are there. I could definitely see the difference, but it took me, 6 years almost before I could really understand what the heck was going on.
Mm-hmm. You've got also a chance to play with a lot of great future Hall of Famers like Allen Iverson and Chris Webber. With Chris, you played in the 76ers and also in Sacramento Kings. What makes those players great? What was the root of the greatness? Was it only the talent or hard work or the other issues which makes them be in the position and the way in the league?
Everything, the mentality, how they approach the game, their competitiveness. I think anything else. I know we have outstanding. I have one player, AI. I mean, he didn't like to lift weights. He hated to lift weights, but he was one of the most physical players that I ever knew. It's not just one thing. I mean, it was the competitiveness. It was their IQ, how they understood the game. You went from an Allen Iverson who would shoot the ball almost every time and was a really good scorer, and he was a volume scorer, to a Steve Nash that was a really good ball distributioner. Two different styles of play, but they were great at what they did as an individual for each different style of play. You got to compete. You got to have that competitive nature. A lot of these guys are friends. A lot of these guys aren't friends. But for the most part, majority in this brotherhood, that's just kind of how it's been, that competitiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that we might not talk on the phone. Doesn't mean that they might not be a really good, but they understood how to compete. It was just a blessing to watch them. But these are the same guys that you look and you see on TV, and you're like, oh my God, I want to sometimes get there. And you have these kids nowadays that are like, I want to get there, but some of these kids aren't willing to put the work in. And so that's how it sort of changed. I mean, I lived in the gym. I lived outside. I was always with my friends. I was always shooting the basket. I was always doing those things, not thinking about the NBA. I love the NBA. I love Mike. I loved all these guys, but it wasn't about playing the NBA. Like I said before, I just wanted to be the best player that I could possibly be, and didn't really realize that I had an opportunity to play in the NBA until maybe, I think, end of my sophomore year, the beginning of my junior year. That's when I started thinking about it. Before that, it wasn't really a big concern for me.
Mm-hmm. So, as I mentioned also at the beginning of our conversation, that you spent 14 seasons in the NBA and played in 8 teams. Do you've got some list of top 3, 5, 10, the best moments in your career, the games or the situation on the court?
Oh my God. I mean, you're trying to pick a needle in a haystack. There were a lot. There were a lot. I think maybe the funniest thing that I ever had, I was in Phoenix. We were playing, of course, Shaquille. Diesel got traded from Miami and came to us with Sean Marion. And jump ball, and the first thing Pop does is hack a Shaq. They foul Shaq. That's the first thing that they do. And of course, he's cracking up. I think that was probably the funniest thing ever, because you're thinking, hey, we're in a playoff game right now. We're trying to go to the national championship right now. And everybody's all serious. And everybody's doing it. Doing that sort of broke the monotony that was kind of the stressor for that game. And I think people saw that, and then people sort of settled in and started to play. But I think that was probably one of my, by far, funniest games um, that I was involved in. You know, occasional guys who forget their jerseys on and leave their shooting shirts on and go to the bench and get subbed in. That was always fun. And, you know, they got that big, huge fine for doing that. But, you know, there were too many to just pick out one. It was always something. Somebody had a really, really good game or hit a really, really hard shot, you know, had 81 points, 82 points, 60 something points. You know, you're watching this, and it's like everything they shoot. And that was like, and you could see that. You could really, you had no discrepancies of whether or not they put the time and work in.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just wake up and have that jump shot. You don't wake up and have that creativity. You don't have wake up and decide that, hey, I have a blank white canvas right now and I can do whatever I want to. And you see this masterpiece that's being created right in front of you, whether you're a visiting team, opponent team, or this is one of your teammates, but you see it. And it's just a really special thing to experience.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned about Shaquille O'Neal. And as you were playing at the both position, power forward and also center, was he the toughest player you played against during your career?
I mean, okay, between that or Alonzo Mourning, or between David Robinson, or between Hakeem Olajuwon, or between Yao Ming, we'll go Karl Malone. I mean, should I continue to keep going? I mean, you didn't have a night off, and I played from small forward up to center.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have a night off. I mean, was he the toughest in some manners and size? One of the toughest to get the ball over was Alonzo Mourning. One of the toughest guys to guard it with moves and you could throw a stick at. Hakeem Olajuwon, Karl Malone. You know, you start looking at how he could score the ball whenever he wanted to. I mean, we can keep going down the line. I mean, every night, David Robinson. I mean, Tim Duncan. I mean, let's just keep going. You know, you have all these players right now that you're calling out right now. There's not just one. I mean, it was an experience, but it was a nightmare every night because you didn't have a team where you had maybe one or two good players. All these players were great in their specific jobs and responsibilities of knowing what they needed to do and how they needed to accomplish it. All of them were.
Mm-hmm. And also at the end, but not the very end of your NBA career, you played for a while in Italy with Benetton Treviso. How do you remember
Yes.
that time and how different it was for you, the European basketball compared to those
Oh God.
NBA?
It said that Pat Riley took about 10 to 15 years off your lifespan, your playing career, if you played for him. That was the same thing. I mean, it was a bunch of young guys. Most of the guys, you know, had been playing professionally for about 14 years, since they were 14 years old. Um, it was fun. You know, we were in 13th place, and I thought, you know, I'll be here for a couple of months. I want to stay in shape. I want to do everything else. And then all of a sudden, we started winning. And I didn't really understand how competitive they were and different things like that. We wound up beating Milan, and everyone's jumping up and down, going crazy. And I'm like, I don't understand. They're like, they're the number one team in our Series A league. And I'm like, okay. So it really didn't hit me till then. I think we got to third place. We went from like 13th to like third. So that like couple of months that I was looking at turned into like 8 months. My son was born there in Italy. I was thinking, hey, I'm going to be back home. No problem. Of course, he's born in Italy. So I'm just like, okay, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to expect. Like, it is what it is. But it was a good experience. I met a lot of guys that actually came here and played. Two of them that played with the Rockets, a couple that played in Minnesota. It was just different. It was different. You know, it took me back to my roots. It took me back to my college days when you got on a bus and you traveled and you got to fly and you traveled and all the kids were young and they just loved the game. But, you know, European style of basketball is a little bit different than it is. We definitely in the States get away with way more travels than they do allowed there. So that was a huge adjustment, but I loved it. I got to completely submerge myself in a different culture. I got to go to Verona. I got to go to, you know, I got to go to Venice. I got to go to Jesolo Beach. I got to go experience all these things that you read about and you see, but I didn't get to just go. I got to live there. So that was like an extra plus bonus of being able to do that. All these things. My daughter right now is in France right now. She's playing professionally in France for volleyball. And I told her, you're going to have a 9 to 5 waiting for you when you get back. Bottom line of it is go see the world, go experience things that people have often dreamed and fantasized about, and enjoy doing that. And when you come back, you'll be a better person for it, but you'll appreciate those finer things in life than just going to college, graduating, and coming back and working a 9 to 5 job. So for me, I was able to travel the world. I was able to go to Australia. I was able to go to Spain. I was able to go to Rome. I was able to go everywhere. And, basketball did that. My love and passion for basketball got me to do those things because I was not a rich kid growing up, nor my parents had the money to be able to do that. So it was a double blessing to be able to do that. And, that was something that really motivated me, that I wanted to just be better at. I wanted these things. And how was I going to get these things? This was an avenue and a catalyst for me to be able to do things that I would have never been able to experience if I hadn't done them. And it made me a better person for doing it.
Mm-hmm. So when you retired from the basketball, does the basketball disappear from your life and you just watch it for fun, or somehow you are still close? For example, like being a
Well,
trainer, coach.
I coach AAU now. I coach AAU. I have an organization right now that I do. I started it probably about 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and it for me it's a mom and pop thing. I have over 100 kids doing this, and being able to give back. You'd be surprised how many parents are like, you have no idea what you're talking about. My kid Billy is way better than what you think. And I'm like, but I'm like, you have no idea what I've done for so long. But being able to give that back and give a little bit of knowledge of what I've learned and someone else has obviously passed on to me is one of the biggest things. I think is one of my biggest passions. I've been doing this. My wife has done a great job of supporting me, even though it's some late nights and a lot of weekends gone and missed. She's really supported me in doing this journey. But, I have 2 sons that play. Well, one doesn't know what he's doing. I'm a 11-year-old, and then I have a 3-year-old right now. And he goes and he shoots in his little basket in the house, and he loves it. But we always call them gym rats, and when you're in the, as being a gym rat right now, I'm like, his tail is pretty long right now. He's grown up half his life, if not almost his entire life, being in a gym or having a ball in his hand. So it's going to be fun as a father to see where your kids wind up and what they have as a passion right now, and not always putting that pressure on them that they have to be like dad or they have to play in the NBA, but just really to find out what they want to do, whatever their passions and desires are, whatever it is, and find a way to help them achieve that.
Mm-hmm. So as a former professional player, how do you support your kids, and do you is, because you mentioned that your daughter is a professional volleyball player in France, do you somehow suggest her that it will be nice to be a professional player, or was it just her idea that I want to do it?
She can do whatever she wants to be honest with you. She won a national championship. Well, my two oldest right now, they won a national championship in 2020. First team in the SEC to ever do it. They won a national. I've played my whole entire life. I haven't won a national anything. And they both got to play together at Kentucky, University of Kentucky. So they won a national championship there. And then my oldest tried out for the national team, the USA national team, and she made that. So when you start looking at it, I think she's 1 out of 32 participants in the country that plays for the national team. and she played, I think they played in Puerto Rico and they played in Mexico, won a silver and bronze medal. And my second oldest right now transferred from Kentucky and she's at the University of Texas right now. And so their team's the number one team in the nation right now. So people look at me as a basketball guy. I'm like, I'm really a volleyball dad. That's it. I was a basketball player, but I'm a volleyball dad.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever they decide they want to do, I don't care. I really don't. I just want them, whatever it is, to give 110% and do what they need to do and to do it well. And if you fail at it, try to fail better the next time. But enjoy your life. Stop being held down by limitations of what you think everybody else wants you to do and do what you need to do. Time is short, but it's the longest thing that we're going to do on this earth. And I try to make sure that they understand. I want you as athletes, as people, as sisters, as potential wives, start how you want to finish. Start it how you want to finish it and have zero regrets.
Mm-hmm. So when we are talking about regrets, if you met yourself from this draft night from the 1998, what would you advise to yourself regarding your career? And do you think that those knowledge which you've got now could change something?
Well, I think there was things that I knew that in terms of working on a couple of things I needed to change in my game. Understand, I mean, I wasn't the average, and I say that. I wasn't the best player in the draft, but I want to say I worked pretty damn hard to get to where I was. I had to. I just probably would tell myself be a lot smarter in terms of decisions that you make right now. It's not necessarily working harder sometimes, it's working smarter. And everything, hindsight's 2020. Yeah, there's a lot of things I would tell myself in the past right now in terms of decision making, but I also feel like some of those mistakes are what created me and made me who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
Would I change anything? Me changing one thing in my past would basically mean that my whole existence of who I am right now or what I have might have changed too as well. Better decisions, but I don't have any regrets in that. Yeah, if I had a time machine, I could teleport back, 30, 40 years in terms of doing that. Yeah, I mean, look, I was 22nd pick in the 1998 draft, and I was a projected lottery pick my junior year. But I stayed, and I stayed because I promised my mom that I was going to finish my college education before I went and did anything else. So, yeah, changing one thing from the past definitely does change my future. But I don't know if it's going to be better or worse. And that's the biggest thing that you don't know. So when it comes down to it, I'm not trying to change that. I'll be completely content with being who I am right now and being where I am and not worrying about anything else. And like I said, I'm 46 years young. I do have a lot of things that I wish I could change. I wish I could have done better, but I also have a lot of things I'm really excited and really happy about right now. And I feel for me, God had a predestined plan in terms of what he wanted me to do. And I don't think anything just happened by chance. I think there was a reason why a lot of these things happen. And I'm just going to trust in it and just go with it.
Mm-hmm. So let's finish our conversation with the last basketball question. If you could create an all-time Brian Skinner teammates team, who would you pick?
Oh, God.
You could pick two.
Of all the players I've played, I can pick two of all the players that I've played. Are you saying two players?
Two teams. If one team is not enough.
Oh my gosh.
Because I know there are a lot
that
of
I've played with
names.
right now. There are. And when it comes down to it, it's like, well, which one? Well, crap. I think you'd have to throw in a Steve Nash I think I'd have to throw in definitely a Steve Nash. God, I mean, I'm thinking back, like even, Joe Smith. I'm thinking, that all these guys right now. Oh my God. I mean, that's kind of hard to even do that. We're looking at Milwaukee. We're looking at, you know, not even, guys that people might consider as role players, even Eric Snow, Aaron McKee, Maurice Taylor was an unbelievable player at that time. And then 76ers, Milwaukee Bucks. God, if I had to throw my, yeah, I mean, we're going through a lot of teams. Let's see. If I had to put my point guard right now, I think my point guard would probably be Steve. My shooting guard would probably be Swing Man, because I'm thinking like, are you talking about in a prime or not? You're looking at, Tony Kukoc. You're looking at that right now, at a swing man right now. But then you're also looking at Grant Hill in his prime. So that's a toss up. Obviously, I'd go ahead and pick myself at my 4. I'm biased.
Sure, of course, it's your team.
my kids are like, who's your favorite player? I'm like, me. But then I would also say, I'd put Diesel at 5.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to put Diesel at 5.
Sure. So we've got a team. Very nice team. Okay, Brian. Thank you very much for the time, for our conversation, that we could finally talk. So have a nice afternoon. When I compare it to our Polish climate, really hot Texas.
Yeah.
Enjoy the day, and also have the nice Thanksgiving, which is coming soon.
All right, sir. Same to you. Same to you. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Okay. All right. Bye.